There's a lot of complex geopolitical issues behind it. Whether the organizers of it took all of them into consideration and played a great chess game remains to be seen. I'm allowing that it's possible. What we're seeing is what there was. In other words, they decided that at a certain point they were going to attack. This has been long in coming. I think they needed it to sustain themselves and to push back. The thing that is stunning about it is that this is totally different in the level of sophistication and coordination. And I believe they had help. I mean, it's hard for me today. I may be proven wrong, but this looks like help from people who have done complicated operations, and specifically the Iranians. So the Iranians have one set of things at play. Hamas has some. The Russians were right in approving it, and they have things at play. There's the Saudi-Israeli prospects of a peace agreement, establishing relationships, if you will. So there's a lot at play. But I think Hamas just wanted to have a successful operation. This may exceed their expectations, but I think they weren't doing it on the fly. They executed their plan, and I think we saw it. After that, I think it's the Israelis that have the game. They will decide how this plays out. I mean, have ultimate force that they could flatten the country if they wanted to. So they have to calibrate it. But I think that Hamas can come back with new tricks. I think they've pretty well run the course. Can Hezbollah jump in? Can there be problems in the West Bank? All that remains to be seen, but I don't think it's in anyone's handbook. This part I think they're playing day by day.
Jack, you bring up some bigger issues as it relates to Iran, maybe even Russia. I guess the issue is that ties in with Ukraine. I mean, what role do you think the United States should play in the coming days and weeks?
Now, I've been talking about it for some time. I think there's a grand struggle that's taking place in front of us in terms of the balance of power. On the one side, you have the democratic forces and its allies, and the other, you have the non-democratic forces on the other. There is a big game that's being played well beyond Ukraine. Ukraine was clearly the first manifestation of it. But you have Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, but now they're extending it and trying to spread the faith or the gospel, if you like, to other countries. If you look at Latin America, there's turmoil there in terms of elections, and in Africa, tremendous turmoil. So it's very reminiscent. I hate to say it because, well, you're a Cold Warrior, but it's so reminiscent of the international dimension of the Cold War, where the West and its allies were fighting them and counterpunching everywhere wants there to be a hot war. So I think we're looking at it, and we have to look at it at a bigger scale. This is not just a fight between Hamas and Israel. This, like Ukraine, is going to alter the geopolitical dynamic of the balance of power. And now we're in the big time where things can get misunderstood, misconstrued, and we end up in expanding hot wars.
Are you concerned about the impact of this? I don't know if you're saying this is kind of an axis of evil here, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, and North Korea, but certainly a lot of those countries have been blamed for misinformation in U.S. elections. We're approaching one, and you've got a radical contingent in Congress that seems to, if not support Putin, at least be opposed to Ukrainian aid. Are you worried that they've sort of infected the U.S. Congress?
We're in a new age where artificial intelligence, disinformation is part of the realm. It's part of the big game, if you will. And the Russians have been using it for some time. I think there was a general slowness in recognizing the breadth of it, including involvement in our elections, I was more upset about the fact that they were involved in it, right? Not that they were collecting information, but that they were playing in internal U.S. affairs is really quite unprecedented. I mean, there's a little dabbling here and there in history. And the same is true on our side. We do not meddle inside their country. This is dynamic. So this information, and I would just bring it to the moment, this information is very much part of the Hamas, if you like, and its allies' propaganda. The propaganda is out there mobilizing their friends, and it's dynamic. I also should have put a footnote. The cyber attacks at the very beginning of the Hamas attack are very impressive. So you're looking at that new dimension of war, just like you're looking at new dimensions of war in Ukraine. This experience will not only be lessons learned for intelligence officers, but it's also going to be lessons like lessons learned on war fighting and how we are going to deal with this. And it won't be just in the Middle East. So I think hold on to your seat.